Did the British Prime Minister lie in Parliament to protect his trade relations with China? This embarrassing question is now haunting Keir Starmer, and it may be the reason for his forced resignation in the coming days. Just a moment, please. What really happens when the most serious Chinese espionage case in modern British history collapses in a suspicious manner? And what does it mean when the Prime Minister is personally accused of lying to the nation's representatives? Subscribe now to the channel, because the true details of this scandal are more shocking than you can imagine. And the figures we will reveal to you today prove that what is happening is not just a simple political mistake, but an issue that touches on the core of British national security.
Our panel here, which is Karen Malone and Andy Williams. Good to see you both.
Hello.
Good morning.
China.
Yes.
It stalks the government. It's not going away. And I thought Camille Baynott actually was pretty effective in the Commons yesterday.
She was, yes.
She's getting better, isn't she?
She is. Yeah, but you know, there was a poll yesterday that said that the Tories would only get something like 7 seats.
I know.
It was an election row. What was it, Reform 430 something?
They're 3 points ahead of the Greens now, the Tories.
I know. I mean, they're up.
That was a pre-conference poll, but we'll very soon know whether or not the conference had an effect.
Well, I was going to say, it does matter, actually. It hugely matters, doesn't it? Because, as we were saying last week, we haven't seen any polls yet. So, yeah, it does matter.
And she did have a good speech yesterday, but is anybody listening to the Tory party, Malone?
I think they're not. And the thing is, no, they're not. And she did perform very well at it, and she did put him on the spot. But as usual, he either doesn't answer, you know, he
Slippery lawyer.
I can't say the word obfuscates, or he just lies, yes. And yesterday he lied in Parliament. You know, he was asked if Jonathan Powell, the National Security Advisor, was the only person who knew about all of this evidence and the case of him, and he said yes. Well, it's not true, because, as you know, the Sunday Times did a story at the weekend saying that there'd been a meeting between Powell and this other guy, the foreign spy. Anyway, and the meeting had taken place, and Starmer said it hadn't. So, you know, this is the guy who, if you remember, you know, when Boris was in power, was forever saying there has to be transparency and, you know, honesty and all the rest of it, and wanted Boris to resign when it had been suggested he lied to Parliament. Well, why isn't it happening to him? Why are the same rules that apply to the Tories not applying to the Labour Party?
Well, I don't know if it is clear that the Prime Minister lied to Parliament yesterday. I mean, we'll see. And obviously, if he did, that's a resignation matter, right?
He wouldn't resign.
He might be forced to. But I don't think we know that he did lie to Parliament yesterday. But I think the bigger question here is we need to have a really serious think strategically as a country about what is our position on China. It's a really, really difficult question.
State.
We know that it is a rogue state. We know that absolutely. And we need to be thinking about China in exactly the same way as we're thinking about Russia.
But we're not,
and the reality is. And the only reason we're not is because of the trade.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, but exactly. We have a Prime Minister who's willing to put the security of this country at stake to get a few crumbs of trade from China.
But it's not a few crumbs. That's the problem. If it was Russia or a minor country, then it would be worth cutting ourselves off from all links. But we do need Chinese trade. And whether we like it or not, we have sold out to Chinese over the past 20, 30 years. And there's no going back.
And I agree with that. And actually, it's all well and good us sitting here and saying, well, it's obvious they're rogue state and they should be persona non grata, but that's not how real politics works. And I think any Prime Minister, any mainstream Prime Minister would look at this and go, well, actually, it's a bit more complicated.
But most Prime Ministers would look at, you know, he hasn't even had the guts to stop the building of the Chinese super embassy. Yeah. He doesn't need to have that for trade, because we know that embassy is going to have a basement and it's going to have a listening room, and they're going to hear everything that goes on in this country. And we know already from Dominic Cummings today that in 2020 there was a major leak of secrets from this country, and Cummings said it was hugely dangerous. What's going to happen when we let them operate in London?
And the thing is, Andy, OK, China are an important trading partner, so that's OK then that potentially somebody in government crashed a prosecution of 2 potential spies who were, one of whom was working in Parliament, handing over potentially highly sensitive information to China. that's OK then. We'll just cover that up. We'll let,
no, I'm not
we'll
saying...
let the spying continue because we want to do trade with China. There's a dilemma there, and once upon a time, Labour had something called an ethical foreign policy. Do you remember that?
I do, and that's exactly right. But it's complicated. You know, I think that they should be dropping this prosecution.
Yeah, is it
no, but it is. Yes. Well, I think it is, because if you start going around the world and saying we're not going to do any business with you, and when I say business, I mean diplomacy as well as trade. If you start going around the world and saying, well, we don't like the way you're behaving in this way, so we're going to stop having any ties with you, you'd find you had very few
Russia.
friends. I mean, I'm not...
We've put massive sanctions on Russia when they have committed crimes on British soil, when they have done things that are against us.
But
we're very quick to punish Russia, but why aren't we quick to punish...
But, Carol, I'll give you an example. I'm not anti-American, but look at the way America behaves sometimes. You know, if we said, well, look, they imprisoned a bunch of people in Guantanamo Bay and tortured them and invaded countries left, right and centre in a completely unethical... But it doesn't matter. The point is that
look at China.
All of this is very, very, very complicated. I totally agree, and it's shocking.
Look at this country. We invaded Iraq.
Yes, exactly.
And,
so if you're going to talk about human rights,
the Middle East is paying the price still.
The point is, I think we need to take. We all agree on the facts. So we need to agree on a pathway forward as a country. How we're going to deal with this, and it's really, really complex.
And it's still really difficult to understand why the CPS did not have enough evidence to bring this case, given all the public statements that have been made.
Well, I suspect they did.
They said they
Well,
did.
exactly. And also, spying
it.
is illegal whether or not the country that you're spying for is seen as an adversary. So I think there's something that we're yet to discover.
And we've had the former Cabinet Secretary, Simon Case, the current head of the Director of Public Prosecutions and a former head of MI6 all saying this government isn't telling it straight.
And also, remember...
That's pretty serious stuff, Andy.
It is serious. And I think you made exactly the right point, Andrew, which is that you know when a story like this is not going away, the lobby know that there's something else that we don't know here, and they're not letting it go.
One of the lies that Starmer has told is that the government... Well, Kemi Badenoch asked for the witness statements, for the evidence, so that both the media and the public could see if ministers were telling the truth. And the government lied and said that the CPS had said they shouldn't hand over those statements. The CPS came straight out and said, that's a lie, we didn't say that. We're very willing
to
hand
there is the CPS now that are under the spotlight because what they've said doesn't add up. With regards to what the Deputy Security Advisor says. It's going to run and run.
Who's been named in the Commons as the person, effectively, who crashed it.
Yes, because he was going to give a witness statement saying China was an enemy.
Was an enemy.
And then
which it is.
that backtracked. So very, very complex.
Throwing a civil servant under the bus to protect Jonathan Powell.
However you could, we're being lied to. The country is being lied to about what has happened here.
It's the reason it's not a major... People aren't talking about this in the dog and duck, Andy, because it's very complicated.
It is complicated.
Yes, and also I think that people are much more concerned about the things that affect that directly affect their day-to-day lives. So, inflation, cost of living, immigration, these sorts of issues. And they think... And I understand why people think that, but they wrongly think that this doesn't affect them. But actually, the fact that we have rogue states, and it's not just China, you know, spying on us, sending information back there to undermine our security and our way of life is a massive problem for people.
Yeah. And I wonder, even though I think Badenoch did well in the Commons yesterday, if she should have gone on cost of living, with inflation now up again, unemployment up for the 12th month in a row, and we see... But now we're going to have the highest taxes in the G7 next year.
Let's talk about how we've got time to talk about Reeves and what she's actually saying now.
Well, she tells the Guardian we should stop bleating. Stop bleating.
She also says we're doing incredibly well. She's gone to Washington and said the economy's doing really well. I mean, it's just stupidity. We're not doing really well. She's all but crushed it.
Well, the growth figures today were better than expected. So I accept that it's only 0.3%.
Let the cat out of the bag. He said stagnation. We are stagnating.
We've been stagnating since 2008.
But Reeves is blaming Brexit. I mean, Brexit, for goodness sake.
Brexit has had an impact.
And do you know she blamed Thatcher's miners' strike as well?
Well, okay.
How long ago was that?
I think our economic...
1984.
Our economic problems...
41 years ago.
Yes.
...were seeded 30 or even 40 years ago. And, of course, different governments make good and bad decisions, but... crucially, we haven't had a balanced budget since 2000. We haven't had a balanced budget of trade since 1997. These problems have taken a long, the chickens have taken a long time to come home to roost, but now that is happening.
Well, I think we had a pretty strong economy from the mid-90s until about 2008, right? So we have in recent-ish
our manufacturing
memory
was dropping and dropping and dropping then, which made us more and more dependent on countries like China. But yes, it was.
I understand that, but it's easy to say that now when the economy is not doing so well. But when the service industry was absolutely booming and we were doing fantastically well in the noughties, nobody was saying that, right? So I think that the problem.
We had a very good economy before Labour took over.